welcome to my podcast. This is Ann P. of Fiber, Floss, and Fiction. Today is Wednesday, the 25th of March, 2020, and I hope everyone is doing extremely well. I hope wherever you are in the world, you are staying safe, and hopefully neither you nor anyone who is in your household have come down with the coronavirus or even any symptoms kind of similar to that. I think we are all operating under a brand new normal these days, and I know that's very anxiety provoking for many folks. I don't really know anyone who hasn't had some kind of upset or change up in how they're doing things right now. So I'm hoping that if things are unsettled at your end, that you at least have some time to catch up on some things like podcasts and will enjoy spending some time with me today. If you're a brand new viewer, welcome. Thank you for choosing to take some time to spend with me and check me out, and I hope that you'll have a reason to subscribe. If you are a returning viewer, as always, thank you and welcome back. Always enjoy spending time with folks and interacting with likes and comments and questions and all that good stuff. I'm gonna follow the same sort of format I usually do. We'll talk about knitting, then some reading, and then cross stitch. To be honest, not much has changed for me other than the fact that my husband is home working. I already worked at home, so that's all the same. I am, however, someone who needs to be very careful about going out because of my immune system. So my husband's been really great about doing shopping for us, and we also are fortunate because our local organic farm delivers. So we've been doing a lot of our weekly ordering through them as we were doing before. So again, not a huge change with that. But I'm here to talk to you all about all kinds of fun, crafty things. Got a fair amount to cover today, so I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. Trying to remember my timestamps. Okay, so let's talk knitting. The first thing I wanted to talk about is what I have on. This is the Soldotna crop, which I have finished, obviously, since I'm wearing it. The pattern is by the designer Caitlin Hunter. As always, I will link to the patterns that I talk about in the knitting section to their Ravelry pages, so you can find them if you would like to knit them yourself. So this is a DK weight Fair Isle or stranded knitting pattern with a yoke design for the top, worked in the round. I knit this in the 50/50 silk and superwash merino blend that I dye for the shop. Dog sneeze, I think, is coming. Oh, she's all allergy-y right now and she's laying over there. Lizzie, down. So I have finished this in the colors Dark Roast. The lighter pale green is Seafoam. The darker is Miss Anne Elliott. And then the kind of khaki color is a speckle dye, which is House Elf. And so I have gotten that completely done. It's all finished. It's ready to wear. I am using it as a layering piece right now because it is short sleeved. You could adjust it if you decided you wanted to make long sleeves with it. It would not be particularly difficult. Super quick knit, very well written pattern. Loved every bit of it. So I may make another one in a different set of colorways. But yeah, so that is finished. And then I have been working on a couple of other things that I wanted to talk to you guys about. This is the ongoing project that I've had cast on for a little bit. I'm in the home stretch on it though. This is the first sock pattern in Helen Stewart, or Curious Handmade, in her Sock Society for this year. It's the Luminary Socks. I am knitting this using a Blueface Leicester, Superwash Blueface Leicester sock yarn from Ocean Wind Knits, and I have finished sock number 1. So there is sock number 1 done. And I am currently working on sock number 2. I have the heel flap done and have turned the heel, and now I'm working on the gusset stitches. Not that those are super easy to see. Gusset stitches there. And then I will just have the foot to finish. Really love this pretty little textured pattern and this very fine little lace vine pattern to it. So this is the front of the sock, and this pattern continues all the way down onto the foot. And the reverse is just plain stockinette. Twisted rib for the cuff, heel flap, and yeah, just a nice basic good fitting sock. I am knitting the size medium for these. The pattern comes with 3 sizes, small, medium, and large. I think medium is probably pretty standard for most folks. And loving this kind of blue-green, which sort of matches that colorway there. I'm obviously on that kick right now. So no specific deadlines on these, but I am going to try to get them done between now and the next time I talk to you, whenever that might be. The second sock in that series just released yesterday afternoon, I think it was. So I won't probably get to that immediately, but sometime in the near future, hopefully we'll get those cast on. I'm really enjoying those. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the 20 for 2020 knitting challenge, which is also being hosted by Helen over at Curious Handmade. Talk to you a little bit about where I am on her checklist. This is a free downloadable that you can get if you head on over to her website, which is Curious Handmade. And the goal for this is to work on projects that fit these 20 prompts, and not necessarily one project per prompt. You can combine ones. So you'll see, for instance, I used the Spectre cardigan or Spectre sweater that I showed you, I think, last time for 1, 2, 3 of the options. And then I used the Soldotna crop that I have on for color work, and New to Me Designer down here, and I think that's it for that one. And then I've got another project that I'm going to show you guys. It's a new cast on, which is the River Edge pattern here that I'm filling in several. So I'll actually be more than halfway done this by the time I probably get into April. So it's not an impossible to do challenge, and it's kind of fun. There's some things in here like deep yarn stash, which is an awesome way to kind of use up some things in your stash and maybe challenge yourself on some new techniques. If you haven't done brioche before, that's on here, or lace or color work. I have actually never knit a toy, so I've got a few options and ideas for what I want to use for that, but haven't decided officially on that yet. The Madison Knitters Guild has a charity section that's for toys, little softies or those stuffies that they do as giveaways at their local library if kids reach certain reading goals. So I thought that might be kind of a fun addition to put in this, and then I'll have it checked off on here, and it will also be something that I can donate as a charity project. And there is also that on the list, gift or charity project. So this has been kind of fun just to, you know, have something to check off and work towards. So if you're interested, you can hit Helen's blog and download the list for yourself, and maybe there's some things that you've already started or that you've started as part of your stay-at-home social distancing plan that might fall really easily into this and be fun to do. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is kind of a combined challenge, personal challenge, and then a new cast on. You may have seen out and about in the world of social media that there is a movement out called the hashtag 100-Day Project. And what the organizer of this is challenging people to do is to pick a project to work on for 100 days. It's going to kick off shortly. I can't remember if it's this weekend or if it's actually the 1st of April. I've already started mine because as soon as I started thinking about it, I knew what I wanted to do. So I started this on March 21st, and my plan is to continue for 100 days, which will take me to just after the summer solstice. I think it's June 28th, something like that. I have it on my calendar. So 100 days from March 21st. And what I have challenged myself to do is to work every single day for an hour minimum on a charity project that also utilizes stash from my current knit and yarn stash. So this is kind of a twofold thing. First off, I think it will be fun to see how many different things I can get accomplished, and I'm really looking at focusing on accessories and not on full garments for this. Secondly, almost every year I say, oh, I'm going to knit a bunch of stuff for charity, and then I get some couple pairs of socks knit and maybe a shawl or two, and that's it. So this is me making myself designate 100 days, 100 plus hours towards working on that goal. I also say every year that I'm going to try to stash down, and after January passes, I don't do as good a job at it. So this year I am really going to try to do that while I work on the 100-day project. So if you follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, you'll see that one of the hashtags that's just started showing up for some of my projects is hashtag 100 days project. So with that, I picked my first item and went to Deep Stash and pulled this skein of DK weight merino yarn from the sadly no longer operational Cephalopod Traveler. I love their yarns. This is a really, that's probably a better representation of it, really dark blue-green colorway called Casco Bay. And I just had the one skein of it. It's good yardage, 280 yards. And let me get the pattern. I had this pattern in stash. I actually did a little post on my Instagram to ask for folks' help in choosing a project. And I had 3 choices that I put up, and frankly, I'll probably get through all 3 of those, or at least 2 of the 3 during this 100 days. But for now, I have picked Dandelion Girls River Edge hat. Now I'm going to be making mine just a little bit more slouchy than this. This only calls for 220 yards, and since I know I've got extra, I'm going to make the crown of the hat slightly deeper. And so less like a beanie and more like a slouch. So I cast on for that this weekend and am really loving how this is coming out. So it has a very simple 2x2 rib here at the bottom, and then this great slip stitch pattern, which I think works just fine with this fairly dark yarn. The other 2 patterns that I had picked had a lot of twisted stitches, and I think they needed a lighter colorway to show those off. So this is going really fast. I am just about at the point that the pattern says that you could stop and start your decreases for the crown and it would still fit. But like I said, I am going to make it a little bit slouchier, so I have probably another 1.5 inches left to do. This is knit, the ribbing is knit on 5s, and the slip stitch pattern. The textured pattern is actually knit on 10s, which I very, very, very rarely work with anything that size. So I only have a size 12-inch circumference, size 10 needle. So things are a little bit crowded on it, but it's working out fine, and it's definitely a quick knit, right? I mean, size 10 needles are huge comparatively speaking. So this is my first project for that. I have another hat earmarked next to use up one skein of Brooklyn Tweed's Shelter. So that will be on the needles next. I will most likely, no, I have no likely about it. This will definitely be finished by the next time I talk to you all. And I'll probably have already started the next one and made some good progress on that, depending on when I come back to speak with y'all next. So again, links to all of the patterns. If there's anybody who would like to join me with the 100-day project, I would love to hear what you have in mind. I guess I should say it is open to anything you would like to choose. If you want to concentrate for 100 days on learning a new skill, or start learning a new language, rock on. If you want to spend the next 100 days working on the book that you've always wanted to write, or maybe you're going to take a walk and document it in photos for the next 100 days. Anything that is a project that you think you can do for 100 days is fair game, and I think anything that falls in that niche right now is completely worthwhile if it's something that engages you and interests you, and you know, is something that you can kind of make a commitment to stick to. There's no requirement to do an hour a day on anything. It's just to do something for the next 100 days. I'll leave a link to the site below. She has two kind of levels of email interaction with her. The first is free, and it's just kind of her summary. You know, here's when this is happening, here's some things to think about, kind of email type posts, which is what I'm doing. And then she also has a paid version that I think has like some worksheets and some other personal growth things if you're interested in that. But again, I'll link it below. You can decide if that's something that you might like to do or not. Okay, let's move on to books. I have several books to talk about this go round. Let's start with my print copies. First is A Voyage Long and Strange by Toni Horwitz. So this is a nonfiction book. The premise of this is a focus on pre-17th century exploration and expansion in the Americas by non-Native American populations. So it includes the Spanish, it includes the British, some other sort of privateers and that kind of things. It encompasses geography from South America, Mexico, all the way up into the desert Southwest, California, up the California coast, and then the Texas inland and Texas Gulf, over to Louisiana, Florida, and then up the eastern seaboard in what is kind of more traditionally taught as colonial America history, which tends to be British based. Really nicely done book. I loved reading this. He basically takes all the things that you learned in grade school that you think you know something about in terms of American colonial expansion, and actually goes and does some research on them. So the great thing for me is that he included places that I know now. So lots of information about New Mexico, the Spanish waves that came through here and how they interacted with the indigenous populations, as well as on the East Coast. I went to school in Williamsburg, and I have a degree in early American history. So Jamestown, the Roanoke colony. I worked at Plymouth Plantation, so Plymouth Plantation and Plymouth. And then we just visited St. Augustine in Florida this past year, Christmas time. And so all of that is included in here. He debunks a whole bunch of myths. He tries to dig into the history of what is the reality of what we know and what is the reality of what is taught in most school curriculum. And it's done in a lighthearted way with some interesting anecdotes and information from his personal travels through the country. So a good recommended book if you're interested in either colonial history here in the Americas, or just kind of want a travelogue, because he does travel to all of these places that he talks about. There are, trying to find one, maps that show the places that he talks about. So even if you're not American or your American geography is maybe not the greatest, you can follow along with what he's talking about in the rest of the book. Yes, really enjoyed this. And it's been sitting on my shelf for 2 years, so don't know why it took me so long to read it, but I have really, really enjoyed it. So there's book number 1. Book number 2, Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore by Matthew Sullivan. This is another book about books, which you might guess from the title. It reminded me a little bit of Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. The main character is a young woman named Lydia, who basically is a bit of, well, she's very introverted. She works a shift at the bookstore as a clerk. She has had a traumatic childhood. Her mother had passed away, and then she is the only survivor of this horrible, brutal murder. And she's kind of put all that behind her. She and her dad have moved to nowhere, Colorado, to pretty much live in like a cabin with no electricity or running water. She grows up and is now working in the bookstore in her early 20s. The bookstore has a lot of folks in it. It's in Denver. The bookstore has a lot of folks in it who are on society's fringes. They're very eccentric to just the type of people that are sort of labeled as crazy, tend to be homeless or very unstable in their work careers. And she is kind of the shepherd for them. They tend to gravitate towards her, and she tries her best to be fair and kind to everyone. And she has a special relationship with a young man who comes into the bookstore and sits and reads most of the day. He winds up committing suicide in the bookstore, and she is named the executor of his will, such as it is. And when she finds him, after he's hanged himself, he has a picture of her as a little girl in his jeans pocket, and she doesn't know how it's gotten there. So there's a whole unfolding of all of these details about her life and the past history that's haunted her through her young adult life, and how this young man has come to find out who she is and how he relates to her and her father, and why he has this photo of her. Lots of triggers in this book, so just beware that that's the case. Otherwise, it's a very good read. I mean, it's a little creepy and gruesome, right? Because lots of things that are not nice happen in it. But it's a very well told story, and it's entertaining, and the key to the mystery is hidden within books in the bookstore. So if you're a person who likes that kind of solve it mystery and are okay with the more violent things that happen in here, then I'm recommending it, and it is a good read. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Like the characters, love the fact that even though he has changed the town name, I know what town it is he's talking about in Colorado, because it's a place that we've been to and visited, and I know their main street, and so that part was kind of fun too. Okay, then I finished an audiobook called Beautiful by Juliette Marillier. I've read several books by her in the last couple of years. She tends towards retelling of fairy tales or recreating kind of a fairy tale feel to things, in the sense that her stories kind of all start with once upon a time. What she's done in this book is she's taken one of my favorite fairy tales, East of the Sun, West of the Moon, and she's focused on a very minor character in that fairy tale by telling this story from that character's perspective. And the character is the daughter of the Queen of the Mountain. And it's a tale that begins when the young woman is grade school age, and then continues up through when she's about 17 or 18. And it involves her coming of age. It involves the story, the original fairy tale is pulled into this fairy tale and expanded upon. And then the second 2/3 or so of the book is this young woman who decides to go on an adventure for herself to kind of grow up and become a queen for her people. I absolutely love this book. I was going to say that this is a wonderful book if you've got kids at home that you could read to them. I'm going to toss out this one thing though. There is the addition in the story that the Queen of the Mountain in this particular culture winds up choosing not one but two husbands to be her consort, a wayfinder and a warrior. So if you can explain that to your kids, or you don't think it will bother them, this is a great book for middle school, junior high. Everything else about the story is something I would say absolutely you could read to a 4th, 5th, 6th grader, and they would, if they like this kind of story, would love it. Characters are great. All of the little details that you come to love in a traditional fairy tale about kind of the evil get punished, the good get rewarded. There's a little bit of magic mixed in. There's some unexpected twists and turns. There's adventure. There's growing up. There's the power of friendships. All of those things are in this book. So I really enjoyed it. I love this author. I love her treatment of things. I love how she writes. This was kind of a sleeper for me because Audible was running a 2-for-1 sale, I think. And I normally get just a book a month from them to read, but they had this special and I saw this. It was a shorter book. It was only about 7 hours of audio. Tossed it into my cart because I recognized the author's name and was not at all disappointed. Really just loved this book. As always, I will put links to the Goodreads pages for all of the titles I talk about here in our book section down below, so you can check them out if you have any interest in reading them. Okay, 2 more. Next, I picked up a book called Daily Rituals by Mason Curry. This is pretty much a book, if you think of what would fit on like a 5x8 type or 5x7 type index card, that you could take notes about someone's work habits, who's an artist, an author, a composer, a musician. That's what this book is. This author has compiled together the work habits of various and sundry people from 19th century through 20th century. So he's got Sylvia Plath in there. He's got, I believe, Leonard Bernstein. He's got, I was going to say Klimt, but I don't think that's right. He's got a number of European authors, and Americans as well, like F. Scott Fitzgerald is in there. This basically just is a brief synopsis of some memory or memoir from this creative person, from their diary or from a letter or from correspondence or an interview that basically just says, this is how I do my work. So it's sort of interesting as you continue to read each one of them, that in general, most of the people that he's chosen for this book tend to be people who walk a lot, go for walks, and tend to be people who immerse themselves when they get on the thread of an idea, which I don't think is anything earth-shattering. This is not a book that I think you are going to necessarily find out either how to be creative or what sparks creativity, but it was just a quick and easy read. You know, one of those little tidbits of esoteria that if you're interested in how people's brains work, it's interesting. If you aren't interested in that, definitely not a book for you. Then finally, another audiobook, The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is another young adult book, and I think firmly fits in that. It's sort of a retelling of parts of fairy tales that you might remember from growing up as a kid. The main character is the local witch, and the townspeople have decided that they have to, once every year, they take the baby who's the eldest from that year and they abandon it in the woods. And the local people say that the witch comes and eats the child. The real story is the witch lives by herself in a cottage, and she's not sure why a baby appears every year at the same time, but she knows it does. So she makes the trek to this forest clearing and she takes the baby to safety so it will not be harmed. And she walks it kind of over the mountain to another settlement where the child is adopted by one of the townspeople and goes on to live a sort of magical, happy, blessed life. And because the journey is so long, while she does take goat's milk to feed the child at the beginning, she runs out as she's walking. So she calls down starlight and she keeps the baby alive by feeding it starlight. So these are known as the star children. And again, they're kind of born under a fortunate star, if you will. When they're adopted, they go on to lead wonderful lives. In the town who gives up the baby, the town is sort of always covered with these gray clouds, and it's always, all of the people in town sort of always have a gray cloud hanging over them. And one year they leave a little girl out, and in losing her child, the mother goes mad and they have to imprison her in a tower. The little girl is adopted by the witch, or picked up by the witch, like always. The witch gets distracted, though, as she's feeding the baby and feeds her moonlight instead of starlight. And she falls in love with the child and decides to keep her as her granddaughter. She realizes as the little girl starts to grow up that she has sort of inoculated her with moon magic, which is very powerful and very strong. And this little girl doesn't even know how to control it, but flowers pop up when she walks in the woods in her footprints, and she can change things into bunny rabbits and all of that. So the witch, in the way of many good fairy tales, puts a spell on her granddaughter that her magic will stay dormant until the time she turns 13. Again, more kind of coming of age stuff. The little girl has to go on a quest as she becomes a teenager. Her mother breaks out of the prison and comes to find her. There is a wicked witch. There is a dragon. There is a swamp monster. There's all kinds of poetry in there about the beginning of the world. I loved this book. It was such a wonderful story. The characters are fantastic. I I can't say enough good things about it. So this one, for sure, if you're looking for something to read with your kids who are staying at home, is a highly recommended one. There's some minor violence in it. One of the characters gets his face cut, but nothing else particularly bad happens. There's sort of the sinister feeling that something might, but there's not really violence, sex, drugs, rock and roll, none of that in this book. It's just a great modern contemporary fairy tale. So highly recommending that one for anybody who enjoys that genre, or if you have kids that you're looking for a book to entertain them with while you're at home. Okay, so that is it for books. I think this is going to be longer than I thought. Let's go on to cross stitch. Tons to talk to you all about. Okay. Let's talk about my finishes first. Sorry, I've got a whole stack of stuff here and I'm trying to sort out. Looks like one of my finishes is still downstairs on the ironing board. All right, I'll have to do that one next time. I'm apparently not very consistent. Let's go with this, the Drawn Thread. This is Welcome Winter by the Drawn Thread. I stitched this on a scrap from my winter garden by the Drawn Thread that I did and have framed out in the other room. So this is a 32 count smoky pearl linen, a witch elk project, I should say. The floss is mostly color and cotton. I think the only thing that's not is the orange nose right there, but everything else is from them. I added, the buttons were called for, but I added this jingle bell instead of another button to the snowman because I had it and that seemed easy. Love the motifs in this. Love how this, the green and red were color and cotton Christmas box threads from last year. So I love the variegation and the pine needles on that. Yeah. So just really happy with how that came out. This was one of my Stitch 20 in 20 projects, and so I have completed that. The other one, which I'll bring next time to show you, and maybe we'll even have that one ironed, is Prairie Schoolers Autumn Leaves. If you follow me on Facebook, you've seen that finish, but I will bring it next time to show you guys. Next up, I also got a page finish on my Winter's Encounter. This is a Heaven and Earth design. It's a mini. Artwork is by Laura Prindle, and that's what it will look like when it's finished. So here is where I am on this. So I had these two pages done. I have a partial page you can see right there. That's the bottom of the design. So I finished the horse's upper part of his head, and then I started on this page down here. And I believe I'm at about the 30% mark on this, maybe not quite, something like that. But love how this is coming out. I love the detail in it. And I'm really pleased with the level of detail considering that it's a mini. I thought maybe some of it would be a little less detailed, I guess is where I'm going, but I mean, you can see the sparkle in his eye. So, not sure when this will come back out. I used this for our Full Coverage Fanatics Around the World Canada monthly challenge because of all the snow, Canada snow. That seems, you know, workable. I think I may have this earmarked for later on in the year, but one page finish was my goal for the year, so I have done that. So everything else is just gravy. It will likely come out again for something else, but probably not for a couple of months. Kind of pacing myself on that. Next up, wanted to show you where I got to on Nora Corbett's Halloween Fairy. This is available as a download, as a PDF from Hirschner's. It is not available as a print copy anymore that I've been able to find. There may be some out there, but that's where I got it. So I put 1,000 stitches into this for the New Start stitch along that I was doing with Aussie Stitcher, Belinda, for the month of March. And here is what 1,000 stitches looks like on that. Made really good progress. Got most of the skin done and bodice of her dress. Started on the last big kind of petticoat. This colorway is showing up a little greener here than it is in real life. It is called Antique Peach, and it is a 32 count linen from Color and Cotton. But I like how it looks on that. It's got some undertones of orange in it, which is why I picked it. Yeah. And I did order the Kryneck that I was missing for this, and that came, so I have all of those now when I get back to that. Nothing specific on that one. I didn't have it earmarked necessarily to come out again this year. We'll see how things go when I have time. It may come back out for the fall. All right, next. I am working on a Joan Elliott design, which is found in this book of hers, Bewitching Cross Stitch. Has several Joan Elliott's on the go. This one is the Celtic Wheel, which is that one. So it's got the 8 Celtic sabbats on it. And I am stitching this on a 28 count even weave, also from Color and Cotton. This is the Sampler Gold colorway. And I had this page, which is a quarter of it, done last year. And so I focused on getting this Celtic knot underway, brought the border over so that all matched up, which is always a good feeling. And really happy with the progress I made on this. This is very densely stitched. It's basically full coverage for the corners. So I have this center piece done. So it's basically the matching big motif here, which I've already started on. There'll be 2 more of the sabbats that'll fit there, and then half of this center braid that comes across to meet there. So one of my goals for this year is to finish this, and this may come out again this coming weekend, which I'll talk about in a minute, but yeah, really happy with the progress that I got on that and feel like it's kind of moving along, which is nice. Okay, then I have been working on, I don't have that cover picture, but everyone knows this one, a stitching shelf. I have been making major progress on this, y'all, because this page I had just started the flowers last time I worked on this. So had done this much last year of this first tier, and I'm concentrating on this page. These are large format pages, so there's slightly less stitches, I think 5,800 and some spare change stitches in these rather than 7,800 stitches. But you can see I have started this vignette right here. She is almost done, actually. And I am planning on, you can see I just have some ninja stitches kind of left to fill in up here. The bulk of this is done. So my plan is to get this page finished, and then this actually comes out again next month for April. I have got several prompts that I'll be working on this for, so I will continue on. This is page 8, so I have 9, 10, 11, and a little bit to finish what is page 12. It's a partial page over here. So past the halfway mark on this, headed that way, and based on Pattern Keeper, this is now 10% and a little bit done. So, loving it. As always, I love working on this one. This page, even though it looks crazy confetti, was actually not too bad. There were some sections where there was, you know, multiple stitches of one color in a 100 stitch square. So there is that one. Kind of fun to work on that in the spring, since we've got all kinds of spring flowers happening right now. Okay, so then let me just talk really quick about a few purchases. These are what I forgot to bring last time. This was from Hade's leap year sale, so it was the end of February. So it's been almost a month now. I picked up several pieces for myself. I picked up Stephanie Pumoonlaw's Nocturne. This is a quick stitch from a much larger piece, but loved that lady and her hair, and I have a fighting chance of maybe doing this at some point. 9 by 10. That's a little more doable than maybe some of the larger ones I work on. Excuse me. This one is called Companions Friendship, and the artwork is by Adele Sessler. I think these may have gone out of print, but I loved this monochromatic one of the elf and the horse. There are only 23 colors in this, so another one that might be relatively quick to stitch. No plans to start any of these in the near future, but when I'm ready. And then this was a brand new one called Silent Watchers, because I love those owls. And I would not ever stitch all of this. I would crop this, so it was just this pair and the very top of that stump. That's a lot of background, which I do not need to stitch. This one actually only has 46 colors, so this is a new one. There was another one in the series, I think, that had wolves in it that I also really liked. So picked those up. And then I also picked this up. This took a while to ship, but I had used some Christmas money to get this kit. It is Jeanette Douglas's My Stitching Treasures. I saw this on Cheryl McKinney's podcast, loved it. And so I got the pattern, and then it also, from the Silver Needle, also came with threads, the silk threads, Gloriana Needlepoint Silk and Rainbow Gallery. And all of the beads and charms. So there's keys, and there's a fan, Hansa hands. There's a thimble in there. I think you guys can see that. So anyway, that was what I put my Christmas money towards. And so when I get this stitched, again, no plans to start on it immediately, but when I get this stitched, my husband is going to build me the box with the box lid and everything, so I can mount it just basically like that. I don't know if it'll be the box may not look exactly the same, but he will make me the box to fit that. So, love all the specialty stitches. It'll be really fun to work that up with the silks. Yes, all good. I did order a few things from Market. They have not come yet, so I'll share those when they're here. Obviously, it's hard to share them when they're not here. And making note to self to bring my autumn leaves finish so you all can see that for next time. I think that's it. Oh, plans. So until I get it done, I'm going to work on that final, or that page 8 of a stitching shelf. I'd like to try to get that done before the weekend, and then maybe work on Celtic Wheel the weekend and into the first couple of days of next week before the month switches over. Next month, I know that I'm going to be working on my Joan Elliott Winter Fairy with Aviatrix Stitcher, because that's an even month, so that's when we do that. And I've got a stitching shelf to come back out for several prompts for Semi-Sane Stitchers for their month-long Around the World Challenge. Which Way is going to make an appearance next month. I'm going to be using that for the Full Coverage Fanatics Challenge in April, where we'll be visiting Egypt because the ancient Egyptians honored the dead, and that's set in a graveyard, which is where there's lots of dead people. And so I'm anxious to get some stitches in on that one too. And then the last weekend in April, Full Coverage Fanatics is hosting an Easter egg hunt where we'll have the weekend to focus on your choice of 1 to 4 projects. You can either put a few stitches, or heck, you can put many stitches in 4 different projects that fit the 4 prompts, or just pick one of the prompts and work on a project that fits that specific prompt for the weekend. A link to the group below. If you're interested in full coverage, we'd love to have you come and join us over there. And so that has all of the information about our yearly sales, our monthly sales, and then the pop-up that will be in April for the Easter egg hunt. I think I am within just a few stitches of finishing another national park for the Full Coverage Fanatics National Park year-long stitch-along that we're doing, which would be great. That would be kind of fun. I think it's Carlsbad that I would be finishing up for that. So another way to sort of keep yourself motivated when you have these big projects you're trying to get finished. I think that's really it now. I think that's all I needed to talk to y'all about this go round. Sneaking in just under an hour. I hope everybody will continue to stay well. Please just take care of yourself and your loved ones. No groups, stay home, wash your hands like crazy. Just be sensible about going out, and do everything you can do to keep yourself and your loved ones safe and well. I know this is a really tough time for lots of folks, just all kinds of uncertain things. So I hope that you are having a good crafting time and hopefully some quiet time at your end. Take care, everyone. Be well.